Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
You won't be able to find a bottle of cocoa butter from the Olympic Peninsula of Portland after this.
Dude, I'm not messing with power lines. Like, not even for a horse leather swim bait. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, obviously you didn't pay too much attention because it hasn't worked out too well for you now with the thrift shop equipment, right?
It appears there are like a shitload of casual fish dabblers in Vegas, apparently. And the vast majority of them cannot cast. Bent! Good morning, degenerate anglers, and welcome to Bent, the fishing podcast that cannot eat at Chi-Chi's without pretending it's someone's birthday so it can get another sombrero. I'm Joe Cermelli.
I'm Miles Nolte, and I have never once in my life eaten at a Chi-Chi's, but I did just
That's a lie.
It's true.
That's a lie.
It's true. I saw you put this in, and I was like, I never did that, but I did. I did just now do a Google search so I could know what the hell we were talking about. And Chi-Chi's has not existed in this country for 15 years now. I don't know if you know that. So it looks like I never will get to eat at one. I also have no idea where it is you're going with this Chi-Chi's thing.
Wait, they're all gone? Like, they've been gone around where I live for a long time, but they're all gone. There's no Chi-Chi's left in the United States?
Bankrupt. Gone in 2004, though apparently you can still find them in Austria, the United Arab Emirates, and Kuwait, if you're really needing a fix.
I can't believe it was 2004 was the last time I ate at a Chi-Chi's. Man, that's depressing. You also just kind of messed up my whole plan, like throwing this bummer news about Chi-Chi's. Like, the very loose theme I was going for with this episode is frivolous celebration. You know, like some of us used to do that at crappy Mexican restaurant chains. Because it's not spring, so we're clear, but it is now at least officially March. Yes. And that's at least a step in the right direction.
Yes.
For me, the end of February is worth celebrating. In my opinion. And this episode, it's like the lame office party you get like right before you get married. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of awkward and everyone encircles you in the common area and you toast with a plastic cup of champagne.
Oh, and like really bad cake.
Yeah. It's strange, but like, it gets you away from reality for a minute, but you do still have like TPS reports to finish before you dip for 2 weeks and have the real party. So, like, that's where we are in terms of the show today, as well as, like, spring. Like, it's March.
Life.
It's not spring. We're getting there. And look, for the record, right, listen, we love ice fishing. Ice fishing is awesome. In fact, late March ice is some of the best ice. We know this, but I'm just tired of talking about it, and I want my open water. That's what I want.
Yep. No, that's fair. I'm also sick. Like, I do have some open water, but I'm sick of when I go find it, having to dodge errant chunks of shelf ice that always drift just below the surface, and you can't really see them, and they're always threatening to take you out at the knees, or at least that's my experience. So, in honor of the impending reality that we hope will be spring,
the celebration.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes.
That's right, Ghost of Rick James, and we are ringing in the almost kind of soon-to-be spring, we all hope, by giving one of you some really cool shit to throw.
That's right. You need to listen up. You need to pay attention right now. Do not fast forward. You know how we've been monitoring those Degenerate Angler and Bent Podcast hashtags on the gram, right? So for exactly 1 week, there's going to be more up for grabs than stickers for using those, okay? Our buddy Brent Hashimoto of Hashimoto Concepts has graciously donated 4 packs of his amazing hand-poured soft plastic swim baits, plus one of his HC4 hard swim baits to be given to the hashtagger of our choosing.
So sweet. You guys are all so lucky.
Yes.
That's what I'm going to say. And that alone is cool, but even better, the winner gets to have the paint job on the hard bait done to spec. So if you want a bluegill that looks like it just snooted a cloud of Cheeto dust, you got it. You can have that. Or maybe,
you can.
I don't know, maybe you prefer a swim bait somehow themed around the 1984 classic movie Break Into Electric Boogaloo.
This is what you've all been waiting to see. Electric Boogaloo. The ultimate
That actually was my favorite movie when I was 5 years old. And yeah, I competed in the first grade talent show as a breakdancer. But whatever your fetish happens to be, whatever you're into, Brent will turn it into a lure just for you.
Oh, man, I want you to win so we can do a Boogaloo lure. You've got between right now on March 5th and when the next episode of Bent drops on Friday, March 12th. To qualify, though, the shot with the tag or tags has to be posted in that time frame. And we'll be monitoring the Degenerate Angler and Bent podcast tags. And we'll post a winner on our Instagram accounts the morning of Saturday the 13th. So impress us with a fish. Make us laugh. Make us gasp. Show us something ridiculous in your garage. Anything goes, kind of.
Almost anything. If you regularly listen to the show, you know what we don't want to see. But do surprise us. That's always good. And I just want to say huge thanks again to Brent for offering his talents. If you want to scope out his work, and I really do recommend that you do that, check him out at Hashimoto Concepts. His stuff is super fishy, but also it's just pretty.
Oh,
it's just well made. It's just nice to look at, you know.
It's gorgeous. Yep.
And perhaps you're one of those people who doesn't really fish lures. That's cool. That's fine. Maybe you're a live
Don't
bait
tag
disciple.
anything this week if that's you. Don't tag anything.
I disagree. I disagree. Maybe you can still appreciate one of those beautiful lures, even if you are one of those live bait disciples and you just have every intention of rolling right on through hard water into open water with your bucket of minnows. No judgment here. We have you covered too. In this week's installment of Fin Clips, where we tell you everything about a fish you never knew you cared about, Joe is going to shine some light on the fathead minnow. And sure, we've all probably stabbed, decapitated, jigged, trolled, and suffocated dozens, if not hundreds of them. But what do you really know about them? Have you ever really taken the time to appreciate this ubiquitous bait fish?
How much thought do you give to the bait in your bucket? Probably not much, right? I mean, you can't wait to throw a shot of that football yellow perch on Instagram, dropping yet another comment about the gorgeosity of the vibrant golds and oranges. You'd change your profile picture to you holding a slab crappie, but never is there social media thanks and praise given to the live bait that may have caught it. So today, I'm shining the spotlight on the fathead minnows swimming in your flow troll. And even though you won't treat the next dozen you buy any differently, you're going to look at them differently while you're impaling them on a hook. Fathead minnows are members of the Cyprinidae family. Sound familiar? Of course not. You don't know Latin, but you are familiar with other members of this family, like the common carp and perhaps the barbel. This family also includes true minnows. And see, many people just refer to any tiny bait fish as a minnow, but that's not accurate. Mud minnows, as an example, aren't minnows at all. They're killifish. Glass minnows aren't minnows either. That's just a catch-all term for anchovies and silversides, but fatheads are the real deal, directly related to the monstrous Colorado pike minnow, the largest true minnow that swims in U.S. waters. The fathead's natural range is pretty massive, stretching from Chihuahua, Mexico as far north as Great Slave Lake in the Northwest Territories. It also extends all the way east to the U.S. coast and Canadian Maritimes. Of course, these days, fathead minnows are everywhere, including Pacific Coast bodies of water and drainages, from transportation thanks to their popularity as a bait fish, but also because they are some extremely tough little bastards. Fathead minnows can pretty much handle any curveball Mother Nature throws at them. They can survive in water with extremely low oxygen levels. They can thrive in extremely dirty or turbid water. They can withstand high levels of acidity. And all this toughness, of course, makes them a great bait fish, because if your bubbler dies while you're enjoying the moons over my hammy at Denny's, or you're looking for action in that sewage-filled pond behind that Denny's, these little swimmers are going to go strong and perform well. But that toughness actually has greater value than just helping you secure fish fry fodder. The fathead minnow is used by biologists as an indicator species. Think of it as an aquatic canary in the coal mine. Essentially, fatheads can handle so much more chemical exposure than other species that if the fathead population is getting distressed in a particular waterway known to have any sort of toxicity issues, it's a sign to biologists that things are getting really bad. In fact, the EPA guidelines outline the use of fatheads for the evaluation of acute and chronic toxicity of samples or chemical species in vertebrate animals. And speaking of chemicals, how about this? Fatheads also have something called epidermal club cells that secrete an alarm substance. Anytime those shallow-lying cells are damaged, such as when a predator species bites or eats a fathead, that alarm juice flows, signaling all the other fatheads in the immediate area to swim away or hide. Furthermore, let's say there's a, pickerel that just munched a bunch of fatheads. That pickerel is now coated with that alarm substance too. So now the fatheads will recognize that particular fish as a threat, hopefully before it gets the chance to eat any more of them. Most good bait shops sell fathead minnows these days, but what if you don't have a good bait shop close to home? Well, perhaps you have a PetSmart. You know those little pinkish orange fish they call rosy reds that they sell as feeders, super cheap? Those are fathead minnows, 100% genetically identical to the bait shop variety. Now, while that coloration trait can occur naturally, it was actually an Arkansas bait fish farm that figured out how to make it dominant in 1985, sending billions of bright orange fatheads off to death by aquarium cichlid across the country. Now, it's worth noting that before using rosies, check your local bait regulations. While unlike goldfish, rosies are fair game in most places, some states or even specific counties outlaw them. Same time, I've also been in many bait shops that sell bright rosies right alongside the natural color fatheads, and I've even known a few crappie and stocker trout fellers that swore them orange ones outfish them natural ones 10-1. It's also worth noting that pet shop rosies aren't usually as hardy as bait shop fatheads, mainly because good bait shops actually care about their bait and keep their minnows in chilled water, whereas pet store rosies tend to swim in room temperature or even heated water. Now, both those water temperatures, hot and cold, are perfectly acceptable to the fatheads, but don't be shocked if you take pet store rosies out to the pond in winter, only for them to be shocked to death when you send them down, thereby not dancing around on that hook long enough for you to achieve insta-glory, or to produce anything to dredge through that House Autry seafood breader burning a hole in the pantry back at the ranch.
Who knew? The tiny little fatheads that you see in every aerated bait shop were so environmentally significant. I didn't
see that.
I didn't know. And dude, that alarm response, that's it's fascinating. It's also, if you think about it too much, though, like if you overthink about it, it's kind of depressing. Because like imagine two fatheads rigged up and dangling close together. And one just catches a whiff of the other one's alarm juice, is like, oh no, I should really get the hell out of here. But I got this hook stuck in my face, so I guess I'm just gonna get eaten too. I'm done.
That's morbid, and that would suck. I will admit though, I got kind of lost researching that one, and we don't give enough thought to our live baits. Like, it's good to take a deep dive into what's in your bait bucket.
You're right. That is true in general. But in this particular episode right now, this week, that is not true because you're bringing in the bait fish by the bucket for this one.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, you recently attended the annual Bunker Symposium and Chili Cook-Off in Atlantic City. Did you not? Didn't that happen?
I did.
That's a thing?
I did. Yes, and we'll go from tiny sweetwater bait fish to foot-long salty bait fish. In fact, in other good news, striper season just opened in Jersey, March 1. So this is good timing. Anyway, yeah, every year the greatest surf chunkers in Jersey meet at the Atlantic City Marriott, or to be more specific, the loading dock behind the Atlantic City Marriott, to discuss the state of Menhaden, or what we call Bunker around here. It's a really great event. It usually runs until 10:30 or whenever security kicks everyone off the property. Anyway, it would take me forever to go through all the meeting minutes, but I did get a chance to sit down in person with frequent Bent contributor and surfcasting legend Bob the Garbage Man Bertana-Natanuski.
I want the minutes, please. I think whatever the hell those were would be highly entertaining. But, since you're not going to give us those, I can only imagine that I'm sure Bob waxed eloquently on I don't know, bunker biomass conservation efforts or something, didn't he?
No, not at all. He refused to discuss anything related to that on record. But I did get him to commit to recording a trivia segment with me.
You gotta be highly skilled for these fucking shows. You understand that?
Yes, I do understand.
Are you well versed there? Are you very smart man?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Today on Trivia, we have an incredibly special guest. I am actually sitting face to face.
So special, you broke out all this Mickey Mouse equipment from the thrift shop for me.
You don't like the equipment?
This is garbage. I've seen better shit at karaoke night.
Okay. As I was saying, I am sitting face to face in Atlantic City, New Jersey with legendary striper chunkin expert Bob Bertana-Natanuski, who is better known up and down the entire striper coast as Bob the Garbage Man, and it is such an honor to have you here. Yeah. I feel very much like I'm sitting in the presence of pure greatness.
Well, you are, but I wish I could tell you the same. You don't look like you fished a day in your life.
Okay. That's not accurate, but for what it is worth, having grown up surf fishing in New Jersey, I still, despite that comment, Bob, would say that you were one of my childhood idols.
Yeah, obviously you didn't pay too much attention because it hasn't worked out too well for you now with your thrift shop equipment, right?
Right. Anyway, for better or worse, you have been catching trophy stripers up and down the entire coast. And you have shared the beaches with many legendary surfcasters over the years. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you want to call them that. But most of those guys, they was complete bums.
Okay. Regardless, I've got a question for you today that sort of ties into that vast network of notable anglers that you fished with over the years.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Just to reiterate, whether I get your question right or wrong, you're still giving me a ride over to the bus depot like you promised, right?
Yeah, that's the deal that we had.
Because the bus is leaving in 40 minutes.
I will honor that deal, and I understand your time is incredibly
39
valuable.
minutes.
Then let's get on with it.
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm saying.
Here's your question. In September 1982, Al McReynolds.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, go ahead.
Al McReynolds caught a 78.8-pound striped bass off the jetty, Vermont Avenue, right here in Atlantic City, New Jersey, that stood as the all-tackle world record for almost 30 years.
Yeah, please tell me the question is, do I think he really caught it?
That is not the question. What I was actually going to ask...
Because he didn't.
What I was actually going to ask is who held the record before McReynolds? And I've got some multiple choice for you. Was it A, Tony Stetsko?
The answer is Jeff the janitor. But before him, it was actually Stan the bookkeeper. And before that, Javier the Russian and Gas Station Billy broke it twice each in the same night.
All right. That's not according to my research.
And I'll also add, 2 nights after Al McReynolds didn't catch that bass, my friend Artie Meldoff caught a 79 in the exact same place.
Huh. I mean, I was kind of basing my choices off the official IGFA records.
And that's fine, but the bus is leaving in 40 minutes. Are we done here?
And just like that, striper fishing history has been rewritten. Did you get him to the bus station on time at least? Did you do that for him?
No, he changed his mind. He decided he'd rather me give him a ride to a boarded-up nail salon in a completely abandoned shopping center. So I just left him there and didn't ask any questions.
That's wise. That's just generally wise when it comes to Bob.
It's better that way.
You probably don't want to know the answers, but you know what? We're gonna move on from that, and hopefully we managed to cobble together some answers that you do want to hear to questions you hadn't thought about, because it's time for fish news.
Fish news!
That escalated quickly.
All right, I positively have to give a shout out at the top here to listener Ryan Motley. Now, you may recall that I said not long ago it was my belief that getting lucky the night before a fishing trip in the bedroom was good luck, But pleasuring yourself the night before a fishing trip was bad luck.
Yeah, that was your contribution to our fishing superstitions episode.
Did you ever bop your baloney?
Well, I might have some good news for you guys. Okay, because see, Ryan has been trying to catch himself his first wild Oregon steelhead. And when he heard my theory, he decided to put it to the test. And according to him, he even got his fiance on board with this. Like, he would give her notice in the days ahead of a steelhead pursuit, and she was game. Like, she was down. Like, let's see if this works, right? But
get ready, honey.
But he just kept scratching. Like, it was not working despite his and her efforts. So then his fiance goes out of town. He wants to fish. So as he put it, he had a date with his right hand in the name of science. And next day, bang, wild steelhead.
That's
his first one.
So it turns out you're wrong. Basically, this is a correction that you're giving us right here.
It is not, because to me, it's very obvious what's happening here. Okay. All Ryan has really proven is that my theory is reversed on the West Coast. It's like a polar flip. So my way works on the east side. His way works on the west. And considering we're talking wild steel here, which we all know isn't easy to catch anymore.
No.
Every Walgreens in Oregon is selling out of cocoa butter today. You know it. You won't be able to find a bottle of cocoa butter from the Olympic Peninsula of Portland after this. And,
no.
I also have to, Ryan, thanks. However, I also have to say kind of like shame on you, because, dude, if your fiance was willing to get busy every time you wanted to go fishing, why would you ruin that? Like, why would you say all this and ruin that?
Yeah, I think he's making a questionable choice there. I could agree with you.
Yeah, because to make it worse, he even wrote in the email, and I'm quoting here, "Now that I've discovered my newfound luck, I'm questioning whether the wedding even needs to happen."
Yeah.
Dude.
No.
I appreciate no. So that's it. So
the one thing we agree on is disagreeing with that.
So best of luck to you, Ryan. But thanks for that. Thanks for doing that in the name of science. We all appreciate things.
I think more
science.
More research is needed on this particular topic. I don't buy Joe's conclusion that it's a left coast, right coast polarity thing. I think that's just Joe's unwillingness to admit when he's wrong. But I, on the other hand, am totally capable of admitting my faults and when I'm wrong.
I smell a correction.
Yeah, this one's dumb too. So last week I talked about the coal mining situation up there in Canada, and I think I got most of the information, like the hard stuff I got right. But the easy stuff I screwed up, so I completely mispronounced the name of the town around which all of this is circling. It's
more town.
I know it's called Lethbridge, but I called it Lethbridge for some reason that I don't know. And some of our very polite. The B is silent. Some of our very polite neighbors from the north wrote in very nicely correcting me. I mean, if I had done that,
of course they did.
Something in Jersey, I would have got hate mail. But no, they're like, thanks so much. It was really great. It's actually. So thank you for that, and I apologize for screwing up the basics, but hopefully I didn't mess up any of the big stuff. With that out of the way, the housekeeping done, we are now going to move on to fish news, and you will remember that this is a competition. Neither Joe or myself know what the other one is bringing to the table, and we are trying to compete for the heart and the mind and really the love of Phil the engineer. We're trying to make him love us with our stories. So with that, it's your week to lead off, man. What do you got? Something good?
I think I have some good things here. One is poignant and one is completely stupid. So we'll start with poignant.
Perfect.
And we're going to head over to Maine for a little lake trout kerfuffle that's causing quite a stir.
No.
Oh no, have we?
We've done it again.
Oh man, we had a good run.
We did have a good run.
Shit, we've crossed swords. I'm actually disappointed it wasn't your leadoff, because then I would have been like, well, at least I don't have to do 2 stories this week. All right. Well, okay, at least we can both talk about it. It's bound to happen time to time.
Bring it on.
I was worried about this one. So
me too.
We first found this story a little over a week ago. And since the original drop, there have been follow-ups. And all of this, at least from my sources, are coming from the Bangor Daily News.
Yep.
And a few weekends ago, the annual Sebago Lake Fishing Derby took place. And this is an event that draws a lot of anglers onto the ice. And a few days after the tournament, local resident Kurt Christensen went out on the ice and discovered piles of dead lake trout. frozen on the ice around where holes had obviously been drilled during the tourney. And according to the story, he found more than 100 fish left behind on the ice. And naturally, this infuriated him, and he viewed it as wanton waste. And he speculates that during the tournament, this angler or group of anglers was just looking for big fish to weigh in and discarding everything else. Okay, now just hearing all that, you're kind of like, oh, what a bunch of ass clowns. But there is a little bit more to this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So this is from the story. Technically, lake trout are an invasive species. They're non-native to Sebago. The state stocked them there in the 1970s, and now they compete with native landlocked salmon for food, especially smelt. Earlier this month, the Fisheries and Wildlife Department encouraged anglers to keep as many lake trout as they want. And here's a quote I find interesting from Mark Laddie, a spokesman for Maine's Wildlife Department. It says, while a catch and release message was important several decades ago, we saw more fishing pressure and higher harvest rates by anglers. Present-day fisheries rely on harvest by anglers to maintain healthy fish populations and to achieve size quality management goals. The Derby is part of the effort to remove trout from Sebago, Laddie said, so we can have healthy salmon populations. Now, if you missed it, what he basically just said there in a nutshell was that back in the day, people fished for food, and today they don't do that nearly enough. And sort of the adoptive hardcore catch and release mentality, at least at this particular lake, has ended up hurting the native salmon population because the Lakers are so much more aggressive. And what Lottie also said in the original story is that while he understands, seeing these fish is not, he says it's not ideal, but in a year with good ice, anglers can catch upwards of 10,000 lake trout at Sebago in a single year. So 100 fish on the ice doesn't amount to much. It's just a fraction, he says. And to be clear, and I'm sure we agree on this, I don't condone leaving 100 dead Lakers on the ice, but I see parallels here with other things, namely snakeheads and Asian carp. And when the message you're sending is kill them all because you're helping, certain people are going to cling to that very, very tightly. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've found dead snakeheads that have been whacked in the head or stabbed and just thrown up onto the bank down here. So you catch them, you don't want to eat them, but the state is telling you to kill them all. So as far as you're concerned, you're doing a service and you kill as many as you can. But the sad thing here is that the organization...
You're going to get there. Okay, good.
Okay.
Oh
yeah. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Don't worry. Do you want to split this one up? Do you want to take over from here?
Yeah, can I jump in for a minute?
Here?
So there are a couple elements there. There's also, I also want to bring in, right, you mentioned that this was initially reported on in the Bangor Daily News, right? And then there was a follow-up op-ed that was written.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I feel like I want to drop a quote in from that op-ed because I think it's important to think about this. So John Holyoke wrote in an op-ed, and I'm just going to quote him, and this is in reference to leaving those piles of fish on the ice. He said, "When anglers act like this and show such disregard for the species they're targeting, they cast a cloud over all of us who enjoy spending a day on the water. Many of us love ice fishing, but there are plenty of others who would rather see us all go away. Why? Fisheries conservationists will tell you that ice anglers have the reputation of being game hogs and killing way too many fish. Lake dwellers who live on the shores year-round will tell you that many ice anglers are slobs, leaving beer cans, trash, and human waste on the ice when their day of fishing is done." Now, I don't totally agree with everything that Holyoke wrote there, but I think his central point is really important to this story, right? And so, to what you said, they were being asked to remove lots of lake trout from the system. But leaving piles of dead fish on the ice just feeds negative stereotypes about all anglers and particularly about ice anglers. So there's an optics thing here at play.
It is. And I know we cross swords here, but I'm enjoying this because I was going to get there too. And I read his story, and I mean, he was even talking about how it's common to hear guys say, well, the Eagles got to eat. Like, we just leave them out here for the Eagles. There's a lot of excuses flying around as to why you would do that. But the problem is, according to the story, there is no wanton waste law for fish in Maine. So
exactly.
It's kind of like, from the state's perspective, it's like, this doesn't look good, but I also can't get you for anything because I told you to kill all these, and
yeah, they didn't do anything wrong.
They didn't do anything wrong.
Legally speaking.
Yeah, it is pure optics. Now, I'm sure we would have both gotten here, but if there's one sort of sad thing about this.
Well, before you get into that, Capper,
I want to build this up a little bit more. I've set up the sad thing twice.
I'm setting you up. I promise I'm setting you up for it. I'm not going to steal your thunder on it because we totally agree. But here, like, I feel like we have to put ourselves in the position of those anglers, right? So you're out there, you're being told by the management agency, kill all the lake trout you can under 26 inches. Help us out. Help us manage this population. You hear that. And you have a banner day, you get 100 fish, whatever, 100 plus fish. I can kind of understand maybe you don't want to clean 100 fish, 100 small lakers. I can understand that. I don't know if I condone wasting them. I don't know if I personally could bring myself to do that. I'd have to be in the situation to really know.
I could not have.
I don't think I could, but I understand that tension of being like, man, I want to be fishing and I'm catching these fish and they're asking me to pull them out, but I don't know if I want to clean all these. But at the very least, take them home. Like, just dispose of them quietly. Don't feed into this perception of anglers as a problem. Right. And so up until that moment, I was kind of like, understand. I definitely wouldn't have done what these folks did, but I could kind of understand it. But there's one more wrinkle to this story.
That was a good setup.
100% convinces me that whomever did this are just complete and total asshats. No doubt in my mind.
Yes. I'm glad I waited. The sad thing that I was just set up for is that the organization running the tournament was fully aware that the state was promoting the taking of as many Lakers as you wanted. So they were set up to take donations of all unwanted lake trout, and they had worked out a deal with a local processing plant to clean them and freeze them. And all of that lake trout was being donated to local food pantries. So now, like, at minimum, say what you want about these guys, that's extremely lazy and selfish. Like, you want to kill 3 wheelbarrows full? Have at it. But, like, holy shit, the tournament is giving you the out for your extra fish. All you had to do was get them over there.
You can't even be bothered to drag the fish across the ice. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Like, to one, just do the right thing. And for another, donate fish that are going to be used to feed people who need food. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. So if you just took that one element out, you could sort of formulate some weak argument, but with that there, like, there's no excuse for that. No. And I don't know if you dug into any of the social commentary on this, but
a little bit.
It's surprisingly mixed. I mean, you have a lot of people who are just straight out appalled, but there's also some who are like, deal with it. That's what the state wants. They want them all dead. So it's a lot more mixed. It's a lot more mixed than you think.
No, that guy who initially, broke the story, Christensen, he's the one who put it up on Facebook, and I would have thought that the people would come together and be like, yeah, man, that's rough. But he got blowback.
You're talking to deaf ears here. That's what they want. That's what they encourage. So, I mean, we don't certainly have an answer here, but it's like this weird conundrum and sort of just speaks to mixed messaging. And like I said, I've seen that with snakeheads. When you tell somebody, and in some cases with those, it was by law. Like, if you catch that, you kill that.
Yeah.
It's very hard to convert everyone to eating them. I know how delicious they are. Most people don't. If they catch one, it's dead on the bank. I see it all the time. But that's kind of what you asked for. So it's weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, we had to cross over again eventually. And
I enjoyed it. It was good.
That story was too good. I was actually glad to tag team that one with you because I think that turned out pretty well.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona, April 24. The Balboa Theater in San Diego, April 25. The Grove in Anaheim, California, April 27. The Crest Theater in Sacramento, April 29. The Union in Salt Lake City, April 30. The Egyptian in Boise, May 1. The Wilma Theater in Missoula, May 2. The Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington, May 4. Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon, and May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
My transition is that I'm going to kind of keep us on the topic of dead freshwater fish.
Okay.
That's my transition here. And
we
this
use that
isn't-
transition too much here. We're like, dead fish?
Dead fish.
I'll go to
I can
dead
tell you
fish.
about that.
What do you got on dead fish this week?
You know what? To your point, this isn't the best. Like, hey, it's Friday and we're trying to have a good time story. But yeah, it's still worth talking about. I'm not apologizing for it, but it's not the biggest.
I have one of those. Don't worry.
Oh, good. Okay. Oh, good. At least we're ending on a sad note. So a consortium of 16 different conservation groups published a report last week titled World's Forgotten Fishes. And this one's, it's a bummer, man. It's a bummer. It also got me thinking differently about fish. Usually when we hear about fish stocks, like on a planetary scale, it's oceanic species that dominate the conversation. But this report focuses on the global status of freshwater fishes. And it's both truly fascinating in its compilation of information about various freshwater fish around the globe and their importance, as well as deeply, deeply depressing. So we'll go with the bad news first.
Okay. I'm prepared to be deeply depressed.
There you go. You were warned. Freshwater fish are in far worse shape as a whole than I and probably most of us realize. 80 species of freshwater fish have already been declared extinct. And for the record, this isn't like an over there, somewhere else problem.
Right.
1/4 of the extinct freshwater species used to live right here in the U.S. And it's also not like a back in the day problem. Like, well, we did terrible things before, but now we fixed them. No. 16 fish went extinct last year.
Really?
30% of all freshwater species on the planet are currently facing risk of extinction. Think about that for just 1 sec. That's nearly 1/3 of all the things that swim in fresh water at risk of extinction. Populations of migratory freshwater fish have fallen 76% since 1970. And big fish, the ones that grow over 70 pounds and are sometimes referred to as megafish, are at 6% of their historic populations. So apologies to Phil here because I'm about to make some extra work for him, but I just got to state this plainly. That's f***ed up.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, my jaw's hanging.
Yeah.
This is not good. This is terrible.
I warned you.
I'm also formulating questions, but you have more to get through.
The primary takeaways from this report are obviously pretty damn concerning. But I also learned a bunch of really interesting information about freshwater fishes that I never knew before. For example, despite the fact that freshwater makes up just 1% of the world's aquatic habitat, more than half of global fish species live in freshwater. Yeah, 99% of the water on Earth is saltwater, but the majority of the biodiversity is found in that other 1%. I did not know that.
Really? Damn.
Yeah. There are more than 18,000 different kinds of fish that live in freshwater for at least part of their lives, meaning that freshwater fish make up almost 1/4 of the world's vertebrate species. And that's just the ones we know about. We're still finding all kinds of new freshwater fishes. Good news for you, Joe. Last year, a new snakehead was identified, the dragon snakehead. Bad news, they live in underground caves in southern India, so I don't think you're going to be casting frogs at them anytime soon.
I saw those. They'll get here eventually. Give it a couple years, all right?
Over the past decade, an average of 2 new species of freshwater fish have been identified every week. 2 fish a week.
Okay, but isn't that sort of canceling out? It's like 1 a week goes extinct, but we find 2 new ones.
I don't think that's how.
Actually, I think we're okay. I think we're better.
There.
We're better than good with that information. That's how I absorb news pieces, which is why you're so much better at this than me. Good news is we find 2 new ones.
We're finding more. They're not being created. We're not like making 2 new ones a week. We're just finding them.
Still.
Other fun facts. And maybe you knew this. I didn't. There are 5 types of freshwater sharks. 1 in Australia, 1 in New Guinea, 1 in Myanmar, 1 in Borneo, and 1 in India.
Nope. I only knew there were freshwater sharks. I was not clued into the amount. 5
different kinds. And researchers actually know hardly anything about them except, that they're critically endangered. That's about all we know. Right. So, and the other piece that I took away from this is again, most of the time when we think about fisheries on the global scale and we think about commercial fish harvest or the importance of fish in feeding people, we talk about the ocean.
Yeah.
But without freshwater fish as a food source, hundreds of millions of people would go hungry. This isn't just like there's an element to this that is truly impacting communities.
Yeah.
So I'm just providing you with the highlights of this conservation report. And you probably know this. Conservation reports are just strange documents. Mm-hmm. And I know that because I've helped write a couple. They have to do this very tenuous balancing act where they describe the situation at hand as dire enough that it needs to be addressed immediately, but not so dire that everyone reading it will just give up and figure the whole thing's a lost cause, so why bother doing it in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah.
These reports need to provide solutions that seem realistic and grounded in research, but not so complicated or detailed that the average schmo can't understand what they're talking about through like a handful of simple bullet points. Right? They've got to. This is a serious balancing act.
I'm that guy. I like a good bullet point.
Exactly.
That's fine.
I'm not judging. There's nothing wrong with that. That's
New
how
York
you got to
Times
get
newsletter?
things done.
Yes. Reading the actual New York Times, I don't have time.
And when you dig into those bullet point solutions on these conservation reports, that's where you usually find the bias of the sponsoring organizations. That's where that starts to creep in, right? And that's one of the most interesting parts about this particular report. The primary organization responsible for putting this together was the World Wildlife Fund. WWF is not Backcountry Hunters and Anglers or the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership or American Sport Fishing Association or any of the conservation groups that champion anglers as parts of the solution.
Right.
But in this report, they did. The report spends an entire section giving props to anglers. It explains how recreational fishing generates $100 billion every year and how much of that money goes into local economies who are the stewards of our freshwater resources. It tells little stories, right? Because again, it's all about storytelling, getting people engaged. Yeah. So it tells a story about the humpbacked mahseer, which has been drawing tourist anglers and their money to India for the past 50 years, and how the income generated from those traveling anglers has transformed former poachers into fishing guides.
Yeah.
The same people who were once decimating this fish population in order to survive are now incentivized to protect them in order to make a living. And the report explains how similar cases are playing out in sensitive freshwater ecosystems all over the world, right? The fact that anglers are important stewards of fisheries, or that angling is a net positive to fish populations, is not news to anyone listening to this podcast.
Right, right.
But for us to be explicitly recognized in this particular report marks a change in how the more mainstream conservation groups are talking about anglers. They really used to look at us as the enemies, right? We were the sadists who were out to torture innocent creatures for fun and kill them. Of course. But I don't know, man. It seems like they've finally come around. Like I'm not going to hold my breath for a sponsorship call from PETA, but I'm really happy to see that we're getting our due from WWF at least. Like it feels like a turning point to me.
I think that's great, man. And I agree with what you're saying. Like, to have that recognizing that what we do is more beneficial than harmful is terrific. But the thing that has stuck with me from the early part of this report, you said 16 freshwater fish went extinct in our country last year.
No. Sorry. Of the 80 fish that have been declared extinct,
right,
16 went extinct last year. That's what I said.
You sure that's what you said? Because I thought you said they were in America.
No, I said a quarter of them were in America, and maybe I misspoke. Of the 80 fish, almost 20. Yeah, no, I said it right. A quarter of the extinct freshwater species used to live in the U.S. 16 went extinct last year. You're conflating two different things.
Okay, it seems like math, which
too many numbers. Too many numbers.
Yeah, I don't
got
understand
you.
the numbers.
Let me break it down simply. 80 freshwater fish already extinct. About a quarter, about 20 of those used to live in the U.S. 16 total globally went extinct last year.
Gotcha. Okay, like what are some of the species? And here's why I asked that, right? Because I'm racking my brain trying to like think of one, for lack of a better way to put it, that matters to anglers. So like it leads me to believe, like, are these like, minnow and goby type species? Like what are some of the recent ones that we'd recognize? Does the piece give that? I'm just curious.
There aren't so many recent ones that anglers would care about in the U.S., right? A lot of the ones in the U.S. are kind of the smaller ones, but some of the older ones to go extinct here in the U.S. Did you ever know of a thing called the silver trout?
Surely did not.
Did not
No.
either. It was an East Coast trout species, native only in North America. Gone. None of us will ever catch one. Yeah.
Like, how long's that been? I've never heard of that before, ever.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I think it was in the 30s. But the more recent one, like the big one from last year, was the Chinese paddlefish going extinct.
Ah, okay.
That was the big one that got news in terms of extinctions from last year. But I mean, there's a whole list, right? If you look up the study, it lists all the 80 that have gone extinct, and a lot of them are definitely the smaller things, the dace and the gobies and the stuff you might not notice, but not all of them.
Right, and certainly not to downplay that. I'm not saying like, oh, it's just dace and gobies, like whatever, man. Long as there's still rainbows
those.
down in the hole. Yeah, no, and what can you say? It's great to not be the bad guys in the situation. But I mean, it's still a pretty depressing situation.
It's super depressing. But I will say, I didn't have time to cover it all. There are those bullet points that lay out, here are the things that we can do. All is not lost. If we make some changes, we'll be okay. I mean, the big ones are pretty obvious. Stop damming rivers and stop using them like toilets. And, things will get better.
Well, that's weighty. That gives us a lot to think about. So I'll end. I said we're going to end with some fun. I'll end with a fish that if you saw in person, you'd want to make extinct immediately, like with a shotgun. Okay.
All right.
Instantly. Okay. And so we're on the same page. This is a dumb story. I just can't leave it alone. But it has, unlike what you've just done, it has no value. Okay. I'm just telling you that now. You will not come away more enriched as an angler, but this just has to be done because several people forwarded me this story, but I have to give the shout out to listener Matt Wagner. He sent it first, so he gets the nod. And this is making some rounds, but I'm using brobible.com as the source, which is obviously as credible as the Washington Post or something, all right? So it's one of these. Headline, deformed shark with human face looks like it came straight from your nightmares. Now, I'm going to stop there for a sec because, these headlines, this is the bullshit that's meant to grab non-nature oriented people. Like, you remember a while back, I had a similar story. It was fish with a human face looked at me funny or whatever the hell it was from Malaysia.
And we did a deformed shark one at some point.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm looking at this fish with a human face and like, it's this big news, weekly world news shit. And I'm like, it's a stargazer. What's the big deal? It's just a stargazer. Like I like taking a practical approach to these. Like, it's not a big deal. And like, the two-mouth trout that I swear did not have two mouths. Its little under thing mandible just got ripped out. But I don't gravitate to these, but this one's next level. Okay, this one's next level. So just for fun, here are the opening lines of this article, which I'm reading word for word, typos and all. Okay. I don't want to sound like an alarmist with everything that's been happening lately, but it certainly looked like the gates to hell is leaking sea monsters again, and those gates can be found somewhere deep in the Indian Ocean. Okay.
Oh, no.
Now you have no preconceived knowledge of this, right? Like, you do not know.
I don't. I know nothing about this
because you haven't seen the photo yet. Just hang on.
No.
So here's what happened. According to the story, a commercial fisherman near Rodi Ndao, no idea where that is, caught a shark in his trawler net. Normally, the sharks are released alive, But by the time he got this one into the boat, it had died. So he kept it, not wanting to waste it. And when he went to clean this shark, he found that it was pregnant. And inside, there were 3 pups, 2 of which were completely normal. And then you had this mutant deformed shark. And it's very easy to describe, okay? So if you just picture like a normal baby shark, like something like a gray reef shark, like a common just shark, but instead of its eyes being on the side of its head, they're under its snout, just above its mouth. And you're like,
dude, I swear we already covered this story like 3 months ago.
No.
No? Okay, I have to look at the photo. It was the same setup. A guy, a trawler in Indonesia pulled up a shark, died, found pups inside, and one of them was like deformed into a cyclops. So the setup is exactly the same.
It's the same setup, which tells me that both these stories could be largely bullshit. But this is not a cyclops. I remember that now. And cyclops, it had one eye. I remember that. This is different. Bear with me, right? So you think like, okay, it's got eyes under its head, and you're like, oh, okay, that's weird. And if it were swimming naturally, horizontally, I guess it would just look like a baby shark with no eyes. But the photos show this thing vertically, laying on its back, which gives you the illusion that this is a land creature that walks on 2 legs, and its pec fins are like little arm flippers. And it is one of the creepiest, most terrifying things I have ever seen. And I'm sending you the photo right now. I want your reaction to this.
Oh my God.
That is not the same shark we covered before.
No, but the story is so similar. It's making me think that we're just getting sucked into fake
mutant
news,
sharks,
mutant shark like photoshops.
Maybe I don't know if
Either
I care.
There are a lot of mutant sharks coming out of Indonesia these days. I don't know.
Okay, so here's how from the story it says it's unclear if this shark came straight from our nightmares or if it looks like something that a toddler would make with Play-Doh during arts and crafts time at daycare. And to me, that's accurate. Like to me, I see like a Gumby character.
It is
like
Gumby-ish.
like we never knew about because it had been like locked in a psych ward for decades or something. And it's got like a hint of Casper the Friendly Ghost and like a touch of Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but to my eye, it's pure evil. And I'll put the photo on Instagram today. Dude, it could literally be the same shark story with different photos that have been photoshopped. We might have been sucked right into that.
Yeah.
But this is definitely like new in the news. So
no, I believe you. It's different than the Cyclops shark. The setup is so similar that I'm like, I feel like we're getting suckered here.
Maybe we are, but I don't care because when you see this photo, I implore you to imagine like you've woken up in the middle of the night and this thing is standing in the middle of your bedroom, upright. It says nothing.
Terrifying.
It says nothing. It just slowly cocks its head to one side before attacking. It is terrifying. And I usually explain away all these natural oddities. This one is straight up terrifying. And by the way, the guy who caught it thinks it's lucky and will be preserving it to keep in his bedroom.
Yeah.
So that's it.
I definitely don't want that in my bedroom. So
no, it's become he's making money from people stopping to look at it. So I mean, good for him. It could be a better living than shark trawling over there. I don't know.
No doubt.
But
it's a tourism play. Right on.
Yeah. Well, Phil, I guess Phil's kind of just going to have to base this off of either our 2 independents or maybe we both win because we worked so well together on the crossover. We'll see what Phil has to say and then transition into the sail bin, and we'll be looking up in the trees instead of down in the water for this one.
For at least attempting to bring some levity into that bummer of a fish news segment, Joe Cermelli is the winner. Food waste, extinction, nightmare sharks. I could really go for a river horse segment right about now. There it is. Oh, we're sticking with the sail bin? Oh, okay.
Well, why did you put the head in the paper? You don't know what I'm getting at.
Well, you didn't have to be so hurtful with me, so angry.
All right, so we've got a slightly different spin on the sail bin this week. Normally, we use this space, as you guys know, to make fun of something fishy posted in an online classifieds forum. But thanks to a listener email, we're using it this week to basically give props to a young man's side hustle. That's what we're doing here.
Oh, yeah, and deservedly so. So listener Matt Colley emailed us to tell us about his son Sawyer. This kid he is our kind of hustler. He runs a little lure racket on his local lakes. Kind of like what you might have heard about some kids doing on golf courses, but just so much cooler. Mm-hmm. Before we get into the details, though, this story has echoes of a fish news segment we did a while ago about birds getting tangled in lost fishing gear. And if you remember, we did this whole thing where we encouraged everyone to pick up the shit you find hanging in trees when you go fishing. But I think it's safe to say that even the more conscientious and frugal of us, we tend to stick to the low-hanging fruit when it comes to picking things out of trees.
Sadly, that's accurate. I mean, if I spy a dangler in easy reach, I'll absolutely grab it and do my part. But I feel like a schmuck for saying this, but if getting something out of a tree requires like climbing or physics equations or tools, or it's going to take like more than 3 minutes away from my fishing, I probably float on by. Like I'm not built for tree climbing. So it would have to be like a really rare or spendy lure. And again, this is terrible too, but I'm just being honest. I'm not really like hard up for lures or flies. So even if there's a perfectly good Rapala up there, I'm not risking like a fight with Mr. Gravity, who usually wins over like one more original Rapala floater. It's just honest.
I hear that. I don't mind a little tree climbing. When I see stuff, I try and grab it, but I know I miss a bunch of stuff. The ones that get me are the power lines strung across the river.
Oh, yeah.
And because those always have like the mother lode cornucopia of shiny hanging things and mono spider webs. But dude, I'm not messing with power lines. Like not even for a horse leather swim bait. I'm not doing that. But anyway,
you'll fish under them though, right?
Oh yeah,
that buzzing. Oh every power line hole in every river is fishy.
It is. It's really true.
You're catching something under there, like a brain tumor. But anyway, go ahead.
Back to the topic at hand. Back on track here. Matt sent us an email titled Tree Fishing and explained that his son Sawyer is really into retrieving lost lures from the trees around their local lakes, which sounds cute, right? Like it sounds just kind of adorable. But Matt also attached a photo of one of his kids' recent hauls, and it's not cute. It's jaw-dropping. Like it's amazing. Yeah. He claims in the email that this pile we saw a photo of represents just a couple days effort. And no joke, there are dozens of quality baits. Mm-hmm. We're talking like hundreds of dollars worth of gear.
Easily.
And this is not a rusted out pile of gas station Snell rigs. These are quality brand name goods that look fresh out the package. Like maybe thrown one time right into a tree.
Yeah, I mean they're pristine, right? And my question was this: how is he getting all these baits? Like, right? Like these are not lures that people just walk away from, you know, if they're even remotely accessible. And in the original email, Matt mentioned Sawyer only does this in the winter and doesn't get in the water. So I just naturally assumed, okay, he's walking the tree line once these ponds and lakes freeze, right?
Yep, he's using the ice.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people do that. Turns out that is completely incorrect because we did a little follow-up, and wouldn't you know it, Matt and Sawyer live in Las Vegas. So there's no ice in Vegas, but fun fact, which I didn't know it, but I also don't really think about it, the leaves do still fall off the trees in the winter in Las Vegas. Okay?
Deciduous trees, dude.
I know, but honestly, I thought all the trees there were plastic. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't even know that they were real. Everything else there is plastic.
Oh, that's valid. That's valid.
Yeah. So the real leaves in Vegas do fall off, and it makes the picking better and easier. So Matt writes, Sawyer amazes me with his creative ways of getting lures out. He used to use a 30-foot collapsible painter's pole that he rigged with a few magnets and razors. The razor cuts the line, and the hook would then stick to the magnet. But that got too unwieldy, so now he just uses a cut piece of bamboo.
This kid is MacGyver.
Exactly.
He's like MacGyver and Inspector Gadget that goes fishing. I'm just super impressed.
And Dr. Claw, throw him in there. Come on.
and we're not the only ones who recognize Sawyer's intellect, because these are well-trafficked places, right? These are they sound like urban ponds. So, obviously people see him doing this. You see a kid walking around with a 30-foot painter's pole rigged with razors and magnets, and you're like,
you want to know what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people follow him around and then ask to buy the lures that he's pulling out. And according to Matt, Sawyer keeps most of the lures for himself because, he never knows what he's going to need.
Stock up.
But he has sold a few back to the people who lost them. He calls it a finder's fee, which is
attaboy.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Pure Vegas hustle, man.
Totally.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah. And even though, I mean, Vegas isn't exactly what you'd call a super fishy town, right? But it does have a pretty big population. And Matt says Sawyer is operating at public ponds that have bass and get a winter trout stocking, which was telling because that explains the mashup of tiny inline spinners all the way up. There's like striper-sized jerk baits in a pile. Just an insane array. But it appears there are like a shitload of casual fish dabblers in Vegas, apparently pounding the piss out of this water. And the vast majority of them cannot cast at all, it seems.
Nope.
Per what Sawyer's getting.
From what we can derive from that, it doesn't change my opinion that I have no love for Vegas whatsoever.
Yeah, me either. Sorry, Matt and Sawyer. I'm not me either.
It's just not my place. It's not, I have friends there. Love you all to death. Just not my place. But if I'm ever forced to go back, as I have in the past, I can tell you I will be skipping the casinos and I will be hollering at Matt to see if his kid will take me tree fishing. Sawyer, we appreciate your moxie and your entrepreneurial spirit. We should mention, I feel like we should also mention that Sawyer offered to send us some of his recent haul. He did specify no swim baits or whopper ploppers, which is just sound because those stay in his personal stash. But I want to respond to that here and say, no, man, we're good. You have earned those. You should keep them. And be on the lookout for some sweet-ass stickers to boot.
Well, Miles is speaking for himself. I would take the whopper ploppers if you were willing. I mean, I'm never going to pass up a whopper plopper. Yeah, good stuff, though, man. And remember, if you find something ridiculous, fish or fishing related, for sale online, be it on Facebook, OfferUp, Kijiji, or the dark web, shoot a link to bent@themeateater.com. If we use your submission on the show, we'll set you up with a little bent swag. So, in that giant selection of recovered lures, where pretty much all styles of bait were represented, did you happen to notice which one was missing?
I did. I had one in particular that I think was missing.
So if you guys want to know what it is, you're in luck, because in this week's End of the Line segment, Miles is going to tell you all about that one bait apparently not dangling in the trees at that kid's personal treasure trove in Vegas, okay? It's a story of a different kind of hustle and the power of internet chatter.
Fishy, 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 fishy!
Well, that's not loud enough, Bert.
The chatterbait is perhaps the only lure in the past 50 years to define a whole new category of baits. The story of this lure demonstrates how the tackle industry has changed, but also proves that new lures don't need high-tech injected mold plastics or robotic inserts to get bit. A chatterbait looks deceptively simple. It's a skirted jig with a hexagonal metal blade attached to the eye. The brilliance behind this design only reveals itself when fished. That blade causes the jig to vibrate and wiggle. It also clacks against the jig head, producing sound and flash. So the chatterbait is like a swim jig, crankbait, spinnerbait hybrid. Like all my favorite end-of-the-line stories, this one starts in a home workshop. Ronnie Davis spent his career as a research and development lab technician at a company that designed tire materials. After retirement in 1998, Davis turned his attention to bass fishing.
I guess I'm different than most fishermen in the way that when I go to the lake bass fishing, there's not a bought lure on the end of my line, no matter what reel it is. It's something I've created or altered to the point wherever I'm fishing, the fish hadn't seen that before from anybody but me.
For more than a decade, Davis tinkered with the concept that would eventually become the chatterbait. His inspiration came from an early 1960s lure called the Walker Special, a hexagonal chunk of metal with a couple treble hooks attached. That lure didn't really take off, but Davis never forgot how its particular shape wobbled in the water. He figured that if he could find a way to incorporate it into a jig, he'd be able to impart that same movement in a more versatile and weedless bait. Ronnie Davis never considered selling his inventions. He just kind of liked building stuff and wanted an edge in the local tournaments around his hometown of Rock Hill, South Carolina. Davis's son, Ron, however, saw commercial potential. For a couple years, the two had friendly disagreements over bringing the lure to market. The younger Davis wanted to start selling the baits, while the older was never satisfied and was always convinced that he could improve the design. In 2004, Ron Davis finally convinced his father that the lure was ready. Ron quit his job as a tennis pro and founded Rad Baits. Their first year, the company sold only 5,000 chatterbaits, but Ron had confidence, not just in the potential of his father's design, but in his own understanding of how the bass industry was shifting. For generations, new baits got popular through fishing media. As I've talked about in previous episodes, lures like the Rapala floating minnow or the Devil's Horse gained much of their traction in the market from write-ups in national magazines. More modern designs like rubber worms and spinnerbaits found their way into the psyche of anglers through Saturday morning fishing shows. Ron Davis was prescient enough to see that bass heads in the early 2000s were tuning into something different on Saturdays. Tournament standings. Ron gave chatterbaits to up-and-coming pros. In 2005, one of those anglers, Brian Thrift, won the co-angler division of an FLW event using the chatterbait, but he didn't tell anybody about it. Afterward, Ron called him, hat in hand, and asked Thrift to please let people know what he was throwing the next time he did well with the bait. Thrift faced a dilemma. The chatterbait was a bit of a secret weapon, something he had confidence in that virtually no one else on the tour had. And as a young tournament angler trying to build a career, that's a significant advantage. But he liked and respected the Davises and wanted to see them succeed, so he agreed that he would. 8 months later, Thrift fished and won his first FLW tournament as a pro on Lake Okeechobee. He caught fish over 8 pounds every day of the tournament and had several days where he caught multiple fish over 8 pounds, all on a chatterbait. He kept his promise to Ron and openly talked about the new lure he was using. In the next FLW event, 4 of the top 10 finishers were using chatterbaits. Word spread across the internet almost instantly. In a matter of days, Rad had received orders for 500,000 units, and their projected annual sales went from 100,000 lures to 2 million. There was just one problem. They had no possible way of filling all those orders. So Ron contacted Z-Man Fishing Products, a South Carolina-based company that at the time manufactured and distributed lure components. Rad Lures and Z-Man reached an agreement to co-brand and distribute chatterbaits, allowing them to dramatically increase production capacity and fill all the incoming orders. And this is probably the spot where you expect the happily ever after to come in. But that isn't actually the end. Not really. Remember how I introed the chatterbait by talking about how simple it is? Well, that simplicity meant that just about anyone with basic tools and know-how could make their own. 6 months after chatterbaits became the darling of the bass tournament scene, there were 70 different knockoffs for sale, which was a problem for a bait and a brand that was just starting to take off. You remember the genius who invented the spinnerbait? Yeah, neither do I, and neither does anyone else, because though whoever that was may have been a hell of a lure inventor, they weren't all that business savvy. But see, the Davises, they are. They filed several patent applications in 2004, including a patent on metal blades attached directly to the eyes of weighted jig heads. Though it took nearly 5 years and a reported $100,000, the Davises were awarded those patents. Ron spent years tracking down intellectual property infringements. Even after the Davises sold chatterbait to Z-Man in 2008, Ron continued sending out cease and desist orders. Everyone in the business knows not to mess with chatterbaits. In 2016, Rick Clunn won a Bass Elite tournament using a homemade chatterbait knockoff. Afterwards, he told the cameras,
If I had cloudy, windy conditions, I stayed with I call it a Trickster 2, but it's just a chatterbait copy that I don't sell Z-Man. And in fair to Z-Man, I like what they do. They make you, they sue you, and they said, I wish all companies could do that and protect stuff in this business.
Z-Man went from being a mid-sized lure component maker to one of the big names in modern bass lures. The Davises sold the chatterbait for an undisclosed amount, but enough that Ron will never have to go back to being a tennis bro. His father, Ronnie, is still designing lures and still convinced that his bait, the lure that changed bass fishing completely, can be improved.
There's got to be other ways to create the same type action without infringing on the original chatterbait patent. And that's what I've been waiting on for this many years. Somebody's got to do it better.
So that's all we got for you this week. As you continue counting down to spring, remember, if you catch a record striper, don't bother submitting it to the IGFA. You won't survive the apocalypse, but fathead minnows will. And all it takes to be a hustler is a bamboo stick or the foresight to patent something before you try to make a buck off it.
Nice. Yes. Keep those sale bin items, bar nomination, awkward photos, comments, critiques, and just about anything else you feel like sending coming to us at bent@themeateater.com.
Yes, please do. And don't forget, your use of the Degenerate Angler and Bent Podcast hashtags over the next week could put you on the path to pre-spawn glory with those soft baits and custom hard swim bait from Hashimoto Concepts.
I'm not eligible, but I'm going to take back my Breaking 2 one earlier and say that if I won, I'd have the hard bait painted like Tigra. How about you?
I'd ask for a magic eye pattern that reveals an image of Willem Dafoe.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.